Hello, and thanks for taking a few minutes to learn more about how inadequate written business communications affect an individual, a company, and indeed the whole organization. Strong writing skills are essential for anyone in business. You need them to effectively communicate with colleagues, bosses, and clients, to efficiently engage in everyday business operations, and to sell ideas, products, and services. In this workshop, we'll look at how poor personal writing skills can affect a person's job, credibility, a company's reputation and its revenues, and indeed an individual's self-esteem. We'll look at why so many active business people come into the workforce as bad writers. This is an important topic, not only for companies, but most certainly for those individuals who are poor writers. I'd like to welcome you to this workshop on written business communication. Hello, I'm Marla Curry. I am a writer, a business person, and a former educator. I'd like to welcome you to this workshop on written business communication. Over the next 30 minutes, you'll see and hear some interesting insights about business writing and business writers that I hope you'll find illuminating. The topic areas that we're going to be covering are on the screen. The chat room is open, and I can see we have an active group. Let me say hi to Marcia and Philip, as well as Bob from South Bend, Indiana. Hey, Bob, a Midwesterner like myself. Penny from Orlando, Florida just joined us. Hey, Penny, and I'll try to get to some of your questions. But there's a lot to share, so if I don't, perhaps we can chat offline. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Effective writing is a vital part of running a successful business. Whether it's writing emails to clients or crafting business proposals to engage new partners, it's important to be able to communicate clearly through writing. Poor writing costs time and money. It damages a company's morale and weakens its credibility. It hurts your brand. It can lead to legal implications and certainly can lead to lost ideas or messages. So I certainly don't want to waste your time today. So who is this workshop not for? If you're a person for whom writing is a piece of cake, words flow like rivers, thoughts gel like jello, structure builds itself, these are the people who are blogging, penning articles, writing winning new business proposals, and plowing through their email with ease. If any of those descriptions fit you, congratulations. You're one of the lucky ones for whom writing comes second nature, and indeed it might even be a pleasure. You too will find value in this workshop, but you're not whom this workshop was created to reach. So who is this workshop for? If routine writing tasks are taking too much time, if your writing ability is consistently mentioned in reviews, or if you dread the thought of writing the simplest document, or if you've lost yet another RFP, then this workshop is for you. Let's look at some typical archetypes of people who struggle with writing. The task averse. Writing tasks for this individual take much too long, and they actually cause physical or emotional pain and discomfort. They feel stressed, demoralized, and depressed. They have high determination levels and tend to be high achievers, so they try to will themselves through a difficult writing task, something routine like a job estimate or an email reply. You often see them shaking their heads, grimacing at their computer screen, and squirming in their chair when writing. They get up and pace the room. They wring their hands and return to the task with sweaty palms. They get a lot of headaches. They are indeed task averse. The criticized. This individual has suffered criticisms all their life concerning writing. Now, as an adult, they face the same old demons. They tend to have a high IQ and may be a never diagnosed dyslexic. They may be good at math, outgoing and friendly, but the written language has never been their strong suit. These people tend to be creative and have great ideas, but are unable to articulate them clearly in written form. They dread employer evaluations because they're often criticized by their managers, just as they were during grade school and high school. They tend to grow quiet in reviews as they wrestle with age-old issues of self-esteem and ego. Some lose jobs, but many hang on because of their magnetic personalities and work ethic. But colleagues consider them a low-level incompetent, from poorly written emails, meeting agendas that require further explanation, and proposal ideas that never see the light of day because they can't write them up. The procrastinator. This person considers writing tasks as boring, frustrating, unpleasant, worrisome, difficult, and they resent them. They tend to be great with clients in face-to-face situations. They're the ones standing at the coffee machine and making people laugh with a new joke or some witty observation. They are great presenters and can capture the attention of an audience, but they wait until the last possible moment to answer emails, submit a report, and do a sigh of relief each time they're asked to present the big idea while others are tasked with writing it up. They seek support for writing tasks. As a kid, their mother reviewed and corrected their homework. She might have even written reports or tried to structure something he'd written to be more coherent and clear. And as an adult, this individual seeks out smart girlfriends and marry women who can assume the editing job formerly held by mother. She's tasked with proofreading documents before they're submitted and reminding him of upcoming important dates at his job so she has adequate time to fix his written submissions. He is the procrastinator. The self-recriminator. This is an individual with a lot on his shoulders. He may be a business owner or a high-level manager at a company. He's a natural leader and has been relatively successful at life. Perhaps he was a high school or a college athlete and is used to basking in the glory of others by making the crutch touchdown or the winning shot at the buzzer. But he's caught in a cycle of failures at work. Yet again, a major RFP that he slaved over for weeks did not win the contract. He's beginning to lose the respect of colleagues because his track record is abysmal. He suspects it's his writing and tends to resist the efforts of others to proof the final documents before submission. He's beginning to doubt himself, though, and is finding it hard to look himself in the mirror. He prefers to dream about his glory days as his friends and colleagues roll their eyes as he once again relives a glorious past to mask his disappointment that he's lost a big revenue generator for the company. Yet again, they don't have to say anything. He's giving himself a hard enough time. He's a self-recriminator. Now, you may or may not have seen yourself as one of those archetypes of poor writers, but you know who you are. And girls, don't be so confident because we focused on males. Women have writing problems too. What are the costs of having poor writing skills in business? Let's look at some. Be sure to stick around to the end of this workshop for a special offer exclusively for attendees. As business writers, we all have battle scars. When I was in graduate school, I was doing a paper for a class final. I think the topic was comparing the advertising industry in the United States with that in Japan. I had great hopes for this final paper in that class. Gave it to the professor, got it back, and he had given me a C-. And I was disappointed, confounded. It brought my A average down. I went to him and asked him why. And he looked at me and said, this was a 40-page paper that had no titles. And I'm like, excuse me? There were no titles in that document. I could not believe it. I had done personal phone interviews with a lot of executives, and so the content was exceptional. Titles were missing. There were no paragraph headings, no titles in that document. And so it was a structure problem, and I got probably the grade that I deserved. Taught me a lesson about the importance of structure in writing that I've never forgotten. A few years later, I was this hot young account executive who had just taken a job at a new advertising agency, and I put together this huge proposal for my first face-to-face client meeting. And we were at the airport, and the owner of the company asked if she could see the document. So very proudly, I reached into my briefcase and pulled the document out, and she was scanning it, going through the pages, and she said, "There are no page numbers." My mouth dropped. No page numbers. How could I have written this huge document and forgot to put page numbers? This time it was a formatting issue. This was during the era when there was no word processing software that would automatically number pages. Pages had to be numbered by hand. We were flying to Kentucky, and I spent that whole flight hand numbering 10 documents. Horrible. Something as mundane as pagination had tripped me up, and I was so embarrassed. So what are some of the costs of poor written business skills? You can be stuck professionally, not getting promoted, not getting a raise, not getting jobs that you know you're qualified for, but in the back of your mind, know you may have a deficiency and suspect it might be because of writing. This is a tough one. Personal embarrassment. It's nothing worse than having your writing be a source of personal embarrassment among your colleagues, among a client, or in a new business presentation that you've sent out, and now in review, someone else sees how poorly written the document was. Don't worry, it's going to get around the office. This is the kind of situation that makes you go hide in the bathroom or duck out of the office early. Close your office door if you're lucky enough to have one, or pretend to be so engrossed in some task that you dare not raise your head up. You can lose credibility. Oh, you can talk a good game, but let someone put a pen and a piece of paper in front of you. You just don't write well, and you lose the respect of colleagues and clients. And when it hits your bottom line and you're losing revenue, your poor writing skills are affecting the business, and superiors will not look upon that kindly. You might be demoted, or certainly won't be given a major writing assignment to spearhead anytime soon. Why are Americans such poor writers? Let's look at some of the reasons why. Public schools have failed us. There's just too much emphasis on test preparation, and instruction in the U.S. has been decimated by accountability, standards, and testing. Rote memorization, reciting the names of the 45 presidents in order or the state capitals. This is the crux of why we're such bad writers. Teaching students to memorize and not learn. Students aren't rewarded for imagination and understanding. Beyond the "what I did last summer" essay, the school year is a series of memorization exercises. Complicating matters is the fact that many students' reading skills are also poor. For example, they cannot recognize the main point of an argument in their reading, and they certainly cannot respond adequately to that point in their writing. During high school, most students don't write with the frequency you might expect, nor are they doing the types of writing that will be required of them in their college years. Georgetown University did a study that showed first-year undergraduates reported that the most frequently assigned high school writing tasks required them to offer and support opinions, with secondary emphasis on summarizing and synthesizing information. Students were rarely required to criticize an argument, define a problem, or propose a solution, shape their writing to meet their readers' needs, or revise based on feedback. Furthermore, according to a survey conducted by the Chronicle of Higher Education, 61% of high school teachers said their students have never written a paper that was more than 5 pages long. As a result, students have not had enough practice developing a set of sophisticated writing skills. When students lack skills in these areas, their writing may be unsatisfactory in multiple ways, from poor grammar and syntax to unclear organization to weak reasoning and arguments. Unfortunately, I've experienced this firsthand. To commemorate the anniversary of my mother's 60th high school graduation, where she was valedictorian, my family awarded a scholarship to a high school senior who planned to attend college. And that scholarship was based on an essay. We got a lot of entries. The winning entry was so poorly written, I literally wanted to take out a red pen and go through it. And that was the winning entry. High schoolers are very poor writers. And don't think that this is a new phenomenon. This has been going on for decades. The book, Why Johnny Can't Read, which criticized the American way of teaching, was published in 1955, 65 years ago. And in 1990, Why Johnny Can't Write was published, criticizing the methods for teaching writing and calling into question their effectiveness 32 years ago. Colleges are filled with poor writers. A report from the Partnership for 21st Century Skills noted that, according to employers, over 26% of college students had deficient writing skills. What's more, employers said more than 1/4 of college graduates were not only poor writers, but they also lacked proper communication skills across the board. College students admit their poor writing proficiency too. The book, Academically Adrift, followed more than 2,300 students through college, found that only 50% of seniors felt their writing skills had improved over the course of their 4-year education. In a modern workplace that requires employees to daily send out emails, write reports, and present at meetings, how can businesses possibly carry on with so many poor writers? A number of years later, I was an adjunct professor of business at a college in New York City, and I had a bright young kid in my class. I was teaching sales promotion. He could not write to save his life. He was such a great kid with a great personality. And one day I took him aside after I had given him a bad grade on a paper, and I said, "You are a senior. You cannot leave this college with this level of writing skills." And he basically smiled and said, "There's software for that." But as we all know, software cannot always save you. Good writing demonstrates a capacity to think critically, to communicate clearly, and solve complex problems through an understanding of the written word. Such a bright kid with so much promise. I wonder how he fared. We're almost halfway through the workshop. Be sure to stay with us until the end for the special offer. You don't want to miss it. According to a Harvard University study, good writing gets the reader's dopamine flowing in the area of the brain known as the reward circuit. Great writing releases opioids that turn on reward hotspots. Just like good food, a soothing bath, or an enveloping hug, well-executed prose makes us feel pleasure, which makes us want to keep reading. Words stimulate the brain. Neurons fire, synapses crackle. Scientists using magnetic resonant imaging machines can literally see how reward regions clustered in the midbrain light up when people read certain types of writing or hear a spoken word. Each word, phrase, or idea acts as a stimulus, causing the brain to instantly answer a stream of questions it poses to itself. Does this promise value? Will I like it? Can I learn from it? Most of the rules you learned in school, show and don't tell in your writing, or to use the active voice, there's a reason, and now we know why. So if good writing does all that, what toll does poor writing exact? There's an old cliche about never getting a second chance to make a good first impression. This is true even when the first impression is made via the written word. When an email, a letter, a text message, or a social media post is well written, well organized, and grammatically correct, the reader forms a good opinion of the writer. On the other hand, misspellings, poorly organized thoughts, and grammatical errors make the writer appear unintelligent and unprofessional. At the application or an interview stage, this could cost the candidate a job or result in a salary offer that is lower than what it might have been otherwise. In a business context, bad writing in external communications reflects poorly on the company. Co-workers take notice of poor writing skills. It affects how they perceive the writer's competence. The reader forms a poor opinion of the writer. It's all too easy to miss or ignore poorly written communications internally. It may seem the least of your priorities as a business. These often subtle problems can persist, though, and exacerbate confusion, create doubt, and bad feelings within a company. This can lead to the degradation of morale, project delays, and the burning of important bridges between members of the staff or clients. It can result in a loss of business, and that's when you've got a real problem. And if the ego-deflating results of having poor writing skills hasn't convinced you of the importance of superior writing skills, let's look at the bottom line, income. It should come as no surprise that workers with a college degree earn significantly more than those workers who don't have higher education degrees. According to the Brookings Institute, on average, an extra year of school is associated with 10% higher wages. Among people over age 25, those with a bachelor's degree had median annual earnings of almost $54,000, compared with a little over $32,000 for those with only a high school education. And to put it in a way that might be more meaningful for most of you, that's almost $22,000 more a year that someone with a college education earns versus a high school grad. That's 40% more money annually for college degree holders. An ability to write positively affects your income even more. And when it comes to writing ability and income, a Columbia University study revealed that people who had good writing skills at age 16 ended up making 9% more money than workers who had poor skills. Let's look at two average high school graduates. They're relatively the same age, perhaps have comparable academic abilities, but they're not the same because one of them is a poor writer, and the better writer among them is earning significantly more money. Even among high school graduates, the better writer makes almost $3,000 more than the average writer. An okay writer who graduated high school is making about $32,320 on average, while the better writer who graduated from high school is earning $35,228 annually. That $3,000 difference could mean an additional $90,000 earned just because you write better. Now here's two college grads headed for a career in business. They're relatively the same age and perhaps comparable academic abilities, but they're not the same. because it's a fact that 2 out of every 5 business people are poor writers. And that means one of these 2 grads is a better writer. And the better writer will earn significantly more money over the course of their career. All things being equal, a college degree holder who writes well will earn $5,000 more annually than his counterpart who doesn't. That $5,000 difference means making almost $60,000 versus making almost $54,000. Making nearly $60,000 puts you firmly in lower middle class. And psychologically, it's comforting, that number, $60,000, that your college education is paying off. That difference of $5,000 is significant. That money could wipe away a lot of credit card balances or be a nice down payment on a new car. But think about that $5,000 annually over a lifetime of 30 to 35 years of employment, let's say. That's $175,000 missed over a lifetime because of poor writing. That money, compounded over time or invested in stocks, could really end up being a small fortune missed out on by a poor writer. Think about where you'd be if you'd invested $5,000 in Amazon.com when it first started. You'd be a millionaire many times over now. 1 year's annual salary premium because of better writing invested in Amazon would have netted you $11 million. You must take a long-term view about income missed or income earned related to writing ability, because writing is a lifelong skill that, if good, can earn the worker more money. Think about it. Even if a college-degreed writer is not a risk-taking investor and prefers to stash his cash in a traditional bank, a single year's $5,000 paid to him or her without any additional monies over the course of a career would net nearly $460 in interest. But should that writer take his or her extra $5,000 premium income earned annually and save it every year over the course of their career, compounded, that $5,000 would earn over $13,000 in interest and grow to $188,000. The correlations between income and writing ability cannot be denied. Quite frankly, you can't afford not to write well. We're more than halfway through the workshop, and hopefully it's been enlightening. And there's much more important information that I'd like to share. Be sure to stay with us until the end for the special offer. You don't want to miss it. Inc. magazine estimates that U.S. businesses lose over $400 billion each year due to employees' poor writing skills. American businesses spend over $3 billion annually on remedial instruction for employees. And writing seems to be one of the skills requiring the most remedial training. And of that budget, $2.9 billion is being spent on current employees, not new hires. Coming in the door, employers expect new hires to know certain things like basic math, being a team player, and basic English. Companies want to hire creative problem solvers, people who can think for themselves and come up with outside-the-box solutions. And yet the vast majority of new hires have grown up in schools that have beat the creativity out of them. And many employees, even those with business grad school educations, lack basic business writing abilities. It's just not taught. So why does it matter? Good writing shows courtesy toward the reader. It demonstrates that the writer values the reader's time. When a writer is able to organize his thoughts and concerns and present them in a way that is easily read and understood, the reader is the one who benefits. On the other hand, poor writing forces the reader to spend time and energy trying to understand what is being communicated. In many cases, the reader may have to ask the writer to clarify, asking questions about what was written. Writing clearly shows that the writer respects the reader's time and doesn't want to waste it. Good business decisions depend on clear communications. It's true whether the communications are internal or external. It is far easier to coordinate internal projects and share ideas when all workers understand the ideas that are being put forth, as well as the processes for completing the project. When employees understand what they can expect of each other, morale often improves. Similarly, workers will have far better relationships with people outside the company when their communications are easy to comprehend. Coordinating meetings, setting goals, and negotiating agreements becomes far more straightforward when both parties are able to write clearly. Effective writing can have significant impact on a business. Time lost and money lost, or time saved and money saved. FedEx saved $400,000 annually when it rewrote its operations manual. The FCC rewrote its regulations in plainer English and freed up 5 full-time staff members. GE rewrote its software manuals, resulted in a $375,000 savings on customer service calls. The U.S. Navy rewrote its business memos to officers and saved $37 million a year because of the reading time saved. And then finally, the U.S. Army tested the effectiveness of a good and a poorly written memo that they sent out to 129 officers. Those who received the better written memo were twice as likely to act on the task mentioned in the memo that very same day. Writing is becoming the most sought after skill in hiring. Over the past few years, our modern education system has put a focus on STEM, that is, science, technology, engineering, and math. But writing is making a comeback. Think about it. It only makes sense. As business moves into an increasingly tech-based communication system using email and texting, etc., hiring strong writers is essential. And when deciding among competing candidates, employers are hiring the person with the strongest writing background. 74% of employers in a survey noted they want candidates with strong written communication skills. That makes English majors the hottest ticket around because they can effectively communicate through their writing, but also they can better understand communication as a whole, which makes them easier to work with. So now that we've covered the magnitude of the problem, let's talk about some ways to improve business writing. Individuals who are concerned about their business writing have several options for improving their skills. Here are a few to consider. Take extra time. In many cases, a person can improve their writing by taking extra time to compose messages and then to proofread them. Workers should treat business communications not as chores to be completed as quickly as possible, but as little projects in their own right. When possible, it's advisable to write important letters and emails out at least a few hours before they're to be sent out to allow the writer to take a break from the piece and then come back and review it with fresh eyes. The problem here, though, is who has time to let a response marinate? When today's business world runs at the speed of light, you can't push aside most routine writing tasks because the work will pile up. Things will back up, and you'll be less productive as a worker. The newest way to improve is to use a grammar checker. Word processing software usually includes a grammar checker, but there are standalone programs that often provide more robust proofreading and feedback for even greater clarity. The problem, though, is that a grammar checker is only useful when the thoughts are already clearly communicated. Grammar checkers can't find poorly thought out concepts, ideas, and messages. It has its limitations. After writing a particularly important letter or email, it might be a good idea for an employee to ask his manager or a colleague to look over the piece and give feedback. Ugh. The problem is that is the last thing a poor writer wants to do, is be exposed as a poor writer, so that the manager ends up correcting grammar and syntax and spelling instead of reviewing the letter or proposal or email for its merits as a business communications vehicle. For this is business and not a homework assignment to be graded like a sixth grade essay. The best option, as I see it, for improving your writing, you can get tutoring or take a class. And there are many options for improving one's writing skills through educational programs. Community colleges and adult education programs offer courses in writing, and many of these courses can be taken online. As mentioned, corporate America spends upwards of $3 billion annually on remedial education for current employees. But those classes aren't really designed to substantively improve writing ability. They are a box that HR can check to say you completed a course. And often their scheduling is inconvenient, and the anonymity that bad writers value most is lost. But anyone who is serious about improving their business writing skills must attempt to redress the failures of 12 years or more of school, the limitations of software, and the impact to career mobility, personal credibility, and perhaps most importantly, finances. It just can't be ignored. The great thing is that you're never too old to learn a new skill. But adults learn differently from children. Children need a leader, a teacher, some authority figure to show them the ropes of learning. Adults, on the other hand, get their motivation to learn internally. An American educator, Malcolm Knowles, looked at the art and science of adult learning. Let's go through some of the principles that he revealed as to how adults learn. Adults need to know why they need to learn something. Adults need to build on their experience. Adults need to feel responsible for their learning. Adults learn when training solves an immediate problem. Adults want training to be problem-focused. And finally, adults learn best when the motivation is intrinsic. Let's look at those further. Adults need to know the reason why they are being asked to learn. They need to understand what's in it for me. When adults understand the what's in it for me, they are much more likely to sit up and pay attention. They need to know in advance why they should pay attention and how it will benefit them personally. Adults come with experience. That experience should provide the basis for much of the learning activities that they view as valuable. And leveraging their experiences can be a great motivator to learn. Adults need to be responsible for their learning decisions. They learn better when they initiate the action to take on a new skill. They thrive on their own self-direction. They need control over their learning. Adults learn best when training can help them solve an immediate, real-life problem. Think about it. How motivated were you as a teenager to take your driving test? How motivated are you when you need to learn a new process or a computer program to be able to complete something at work? You're probably very motivated. That is, if you want to keep your job. Motivation increases in adults when there is an immediate need to learn. Adults learn best when content is problem-oriented. They want to learn specific knowledge, skills, and abilities that can solve a problem rather than some generic content. They're much more likely to learn when they feel the training can help them right now. Adults learn best when the motivation comes internally rather than externally. Now, this doesn't mean that adults can't be motivated externally. They can. I mean, if your boss wants you to know something and you don't learn it, you can get fired. And for most people, that's definitely a motivator. But we'd probably agree that that isn't the best way to motivate someone who is an adult learner. A better way is for those learners to find their own internal motivator. Those intrinsic motivators are things like knowing something makes them feel better about themselves or will give them more opportunities to grow professionally. Those types of motivators have long-term power and impact. If you've stayed with me this far, you already suspect that writing is holding you back, ruining your credibility, or leading to lost promotions, salary increases, and the respect of your colleagues. But if you're happy with your writing abilities, great. I wish you all the best. But if you're not, I can help you. So if you're interested in talking to me about that, there's a couple of steps that I need you to take. Step one is to have an honest conversation with yourself about how poor writing has affected your life and especially your business career. Ask yourself if you can afford for the situation to stay as it is, or if you're ready to make a change. Now, if you're happy with the situation, we can part friends. But if the answer to that question is yes, you're ready to do something, then do something about it. Don't let another day go by without addressing your poor writing abilities. Step two is that you schedule a discovery call with me. The goal of that call is to discuss how you can improve your writing and perhaps just burden yourself about how poor writing has impacted you personally in a no-judgment environment. Together, we'll make a plan about how you can finally change that situation so that writing is no longer a handicap in your professional life, but an asset. I'd like to offer you a no-cost 45-minute follow-up session to this workshop. This is a $497 consultative session being offered for free for you to learn how you can become not only a better writer, but a better business person. Doesn't it sound good? If it did sound good, then visit the website below, marlacurry.com/call to set up your personal discovery call. I'm looking forward to chatting with you. Say, thanks for watching. Visit the URL below, write it down if you need to schedule a convenient time for me to call you. We can chat one-on-one about how you can master business writing and indeed make writing a professional asset.